Hey Messy family, welcome back to the channel. In today's segment, we will be reviewing a story time by a creator named Danielle. In this story time, she's talking about her viral wedding proposal that was viewed by billions of people. In this story time, she's going to be breaking down the dark side of that and pretty much how everything completely went downhill from there. What started as a fairy tale ended up being with her locked in jail. Let's get into the story time.
Story of how I met my husband before he proposed to me in front of billions of people. Let's get started. Okay, so go back to March of 2019. I was living in California, LA area at the time, a little bit outside of LA. And at that point, I lived in LA for about 6 months. It was really, really hard finding genuine connections and friendships that weren't being used as a stepping stand, or I guess a stepping ground for you to work yourself up the pyramid. Everyone was using everyone for connections, and it was just really hard to find genuine people. So I told my boss about everything that was going on, who was a pretty cool boss. And he told me about this app called Bumble where his girlfriend met her best friend on. So I was like, okay, cool. So I downloaded the app and realized that the app wasn't just for friendships. It was for networking, dating, and friendships. But out of curiosity, I downloaded the dating profile, which about 48 to 72 hours later, I got matched up with Brandon. While I matched with Brandon, obviously I was speaking to other guys too. And at this point, I already went on about a few, I don't know how many dates, but I was speaking to about 2 or 3 guys at the same time. And then I added Brandon into the mix. These other connections that I made were pretty important to me due to the fact that it just shows that there was no desperation or it was like an impulsive decision at all with Brandon. In LA, a lot of people were really, really into their dating profiles being pretty to the T with headshots and professional photography done. And just literally their dating profile just looking like an ad, really, like a perfect ad. And I think that one thing that stood out the most about Brandon was that his profile wasn't even like that impressive. It was pretty mediocre, but it was refreshing to see that out of all the other people that I matched with. So we matched, and obviously the women have to make the first move. So I messaged him and we wind up talking for a few days. And then a couple of days later, he asked me out on a date, specifically for us to go and get sushi together. And I said no. Even though I was already going on dates pretty confidently with other men, I said no to him due to the fact that I was just nervous. And I couldn't really pinpoint why I was nervous. But later on that night though, I did message him and I said, hey, you know what? Instead of you spending money on me, because I'm not a girl that likes to be, I'm different. I don't like men spending money on me on the first date, especially if we don't know if we like have like a genuine connection. So I said, hey, how about you just pick me up? We go to a park near my house and we just talk. So he picked me up like around 8:30, 9 o'clock because I messaged him pretty late. And then this is where I met him. Got into his car. First thing that I noticed about him was his deep voice. He has literally the deepest voice I have ever heard. And I found it to be quite sexy. And he had such great eye contact. And his vibe gave off, I'm very attentive, but I'm also like pretty chill. So we went to a park that was like not even like 6-7 minutes away from my apartment that I was staying at the time. And we talked for hours at that park. We went on the playground, we went on the swings, we were on the bench, we were walking around the entire park. And it was just nothing but an emotional connection just based off of us communicating with each other. We didn't hold hands, we didn't touch each other. There was no physical whatsoever that happened. So after we went to the park, we got on the connection of me just knowing the fact that me just not knowing anything about LA, not where to go, what places to eat, et cetera, et cetera. And at this point, Brandon had been living in LA for, I think, 4 years, something like that. So he knew all the whereabouts and he drove me around the entire night. And it was pretty nice. So it really was. So as he was driving me around, we were continuing to talk, and he brought up the fact that my Bumble profile stated that I didn't drink any alcohol. I've never had a sip of alcohol in my entire life. And that I've never like smoked or like anything. I don't touch any of that stuff. And then he asked if I was Mormon. And I said yes. I was pretty pleasantly surprised that he knew much about my religion, or that he just connected the two. And it made me feel like pretty seen, but also it was nice to know that if we were to go farther into whatever this is, that me spiritually opening up to him could be a great thing to do. But little did I know that that was going to bite me in the ass sooner or later, or both. But anyways, we connected extremely and deeply on just conversation. Like I said, we didn't hold hands, we didn't touch each other. There was nothing like that whatsoever throughout the entire night. And I find that to be very, very rare, just in my experience maybe, but it was quite magical, the conversations that we had and just the connections that we were making, and just how informative he was and how attentive he was to me and asking questions. And it wasn't one-sided, it was both of us just going back and forth, and I absolutely love that so much. He wound up picking me up like around 8:30. We did not get back to my apartment, or he did not drop me off at my apartment until 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. That's how much we were driving and just talking. And yeah, thinking about it, it really was a special time. But both of us had work the next morning, and we got up pretty early for our shifts for what we were doing for work at the time. And he dropped me off at my gate because my apartment was gated community. And before I got out of the car to say goodbye, he asked if he could kiss me. And I said yes. And it wound up being a very, very passionate and magical kiss, I would say. It was electric. It was pretty electric. And honestly, that night, it felt like love at first sight. But little did I know it was love bombing. But it definitely got my adrenaline pumping to the point where I literally sprinted to my apartment like I was a teenager in love. And yeah, little did I know that that whole night was going to be the start of years and years of heartache that follows. Let's talk about how love bombing looked in my relationship before my husband proposed to me in front of billions of people on an NBA dance court. If you have not watched part 1, I highly suggest you watch part 1 first before coming to this video, because this is going to be a 10-part series and it's going to get juicier and juicier as it goes on. Trust me. Okay, so I'm going to give you three freaking stories of how Brandon love bombed me during our relationship. Number 1, take it back to May 2019. I am still dating one of the other guys that I have matched with casually, and it is Memorial Day and I'm spending the day with him. Brandon is blowing up my phone. I don't know why he's blowing up my phone. He's calling me, he's texting me. He's being very, very excessive to where it's such a turn off. And I didn't respond to him. I didn't text him back just because I was focused on the connection that was in front of me. But I later on found out in our relationship, he told me that that day that he was blowing up my phone, 1, he wanted to know where I was because he wanted to spend time with me. And 2, he set up this whole, I don't know, thing in his bedroom. He had like those scented sticks or whatever, and crystals out, and he was speaking to his pendant, the pendant that like goes back and forth or whatever. And he asked his pendant if I was going to be the woman that he marries, and the pendant said strongly yes. So from that point on, or at that point, he knew that he was going to marry me. We met in March. This is May, Memorial Day. Some may say that that's just like so stinking cute that like he knew that I was going to be the one that he marries after not even us being exclusive. We made things exclusive in July, and only knowing me for about 2 months. But yeah, I just found that to be weird that he was just blowing up my phone a lot. And some would say that that's obsession and that's like romantic, but no, that's just love bombing, sweetheart. Number two, I was training for the NBA NFL auditions that my mentor told me that I should go for. I never did any kind of training for them at all. So she told me that I should go to the NBA prep class for the LA Clippers Spirit dance team. Well, I went, had such a blast, fell in love with the girls there. They were so supportive and so amazing. And weeks later, they had their auditions for the team. During those weeks, Brandon and I, we were in his bedroom. I don't know how we got on the subject of it, but I'm originally from New Orleans, and I was just telling him how much I miss New Orleans, just the food and the Southern charm, and that I just want to go back and visit one day. I kid you not even a freaking hour later, he has tickets for us to be going to New Orleans for a week and a half long, a rental car already booked, an Airbnb near Bourbon Street already booked for us to go to New Orleans that following week. And it was after one conversation. It wasn't multiple conversations, one flippin' conversation. Literally a woman's dream come true. You tell a man something just one time and he's like, all right, bet. And he makes a decision for it. One, you find that extremely sexy. Two, you find that like, oh my gosh, he's just like so supportive and so loving and he's so affectionate and attentive. No, honey, he's just trying to gain control of you right here, right now. So the week that we are supposed to be leaving for New Orleans is also the same week as the LA Clippers Spirit dance auditions. Well, not to toot my own horn, but I was very, very proud of myself in this moment. My first ever dance audition for an NBA team, and I only went to one prep class. All my other classes was Playground LA, Millennium, just more individuality dance classes, not geared towards being on a team. I made it all the way to finals, and I was so proud of myself. The day that I had finals was the day that we were supposed to leave for New Orleans. So what Brandon does is he pushes it back just 24 hours because that day I was going to find out if I was going to make the team or not. Which leads me to number 3. If anyone knows anything about dance auditions, especially finals, you have interviews that day. Also have choreography that you learned in the open auditions, brand new choreography that you learned during the semifinals and the finals. And you are broken up into smaller groups for you to perform it in front of the judges and everyone else that is auditioning. So if you are a dancer or you just know how it is, you know that that can take literally all evening. That can go on for hours and hours and hours. And instead of Brandon waiting back in where he was living at the time, which was like 40 minutes outside of LA, he waited down the street at a restaurant, literally a block or two away from where I was auditioning, for hours at a restaurant. Hours. So after the judges did their final evaluation, I wound up not making the team, but I still found it to be such a really big accomplishment that my first audition ever, I made it straight to the finals, which was amazing. But obviously I bawled like a baby, and I told him that I'm leaving where I was auditioning, and I literally just see him sprinting freaking down the sidewalk, running up to me, and he just cradles me, and I'm bawling my eyes out, and he comforts me the rest of the freaking night. Comforts me all the way on the drive home, which was like, if you know anything about LA, everything is at least an hour. And yeah, he didn't leave my side for the rest of the evening. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that's what made it pretty official with us. Not even kidding, the next day that we were leaving to go to New Orleans, we made it official. I cut off all contact with all the other guys that I was dating, and I became his and he became mine. Now, some of you may be like, okay, well, how are these love bombing? Number one, the first story that I told you, some women, including myself, we tend to think that obsession means romance, and that is not the case at all. Him blowing up my phone was very excessive, but I also thought that it was pretty nice because that just means that he wants me. No, that just means that he wanted to control where I was and what I was doing, and he wanted to know all the information. Second story I gave you. Him wanting to be my ride or die, wanting to be supportive with my dance audition. Or I guess that was the third story. Him wanting to be my ride or die, be supportive of my dance audition. Really, really insert himself into major milestones in my life early on in our relationship. And then third, a big grand gesture to install attachment so quickly to where he can control me later on. And also, if you're doing all of these gestures right now, what makes you think that they'll continue to do them later on? Part 3 coming soon.
So far, I don't really see any red flags other than him blowing up her phone. Like, he did these big gestures. I wouldn't think like later on that it would be a bad thing. Like, I would think he would continue to do it. I mean, I should say it's love bombing now, so I'm assuming eventually he stopped. But other than him blowing her up and then saying like, I'm gonna marry you, that was kind of wild card there. I also noticed too, I think he was doing all of this in the beginning too because he knew she had options.
Right.
So when you know someone has options, you have to be that best option to cut off everybody else.
Yeah, we always know that. Us as guys, we know when y'all have options for sure. We definitely try to stand out. Some just takes it too far into the realm of love bombing, you know. But I think women should watch out for that though. If a man's coming in giving you everything you want off the rip, you should question why and why you and things like that. But I think some of us just get in the realm of just not having it, so we appreciating that, and you know, we just say forget it. We just gonna appreciate the fact that somebody's doing it, but that person's knowing what he's doing the whole time. Now, I'm not saying that every guy that meets you and that wants to, you know, do great things for you, because it might be within their limits. You know, love bombing to me is when somebody's going above their limits,
right?
To a extent, you know what I'm saying? So if I got money, buying you things ain't nothing. That's not love bombing to me. That's just normal day-to-day stuff. You know what I'm saying? But if I don't have it and I'm going out my way to go get it and provide all these things just to make you happy, then you should be worried. You know, you should be worried because a man's going above for somebody he just met. You know what I'm saying? He could really like you, or he probably just trying to get you to a point where you can trust him enough, you know? So I don't know. That's my thoughts on that.
Well, let's find out more.
Let's talk about the early red signs that happened in my relationship before my husband proposed to me in front of billions of people on an NBA court. I want to put a little disclaimer out there. If you have never been love bombed in a relationship, you would not understand the fact that all of these early red signs float underneath the radar. They're literally just flying through. These are scabs that I'm reopening so they can heal properly, but I would be doing a disservice to you guys, especially to the women that are in my DMs telling me their stories, by not sharing my story with you guys. Number 1, we are still casually dating at this point. I am seeing Brandon every other day just because he only lives about 15 minutes away from me. It's on a Sunday, and he came over to watch the new episode of Game of Thrones. I'm not interested, or I wasn't interested in Game of Thrones, but I watched it with him anyways, and we spent some time together after. I looked at the time, realized that it was like past 10, and I was like, oh shoot, you should probably leave, because I wanted to go to bed, and he also woke up pretty early. He then responds and he says, oh, well, like, I don't have to leave. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Yes, you do. I'm literally telling you to leave because I'm tired. And then he says, oh, well, like, I don't have to leave. I can stay the night. And I'm like, no, you don't even have clothes. And then he's like, I actually have a packed bag in my car. And I'm like, dude, what the freak? No, absolutely not. This just baffled me. It really, really freaking did, because instead of him just asking me my boundaries, he decided to test my boundaries. And I told him no, and he went home that night. Number 2, this was during COVID. California was completely shut down, so we went to Washington to visit some of his family since we had a lot of time on our hands. And during this time, it was very unknown if NFL or NBA auditions were going to happen. But a lot of our mentors, they went on their platforms and they said to just stay ready. So I joined a membership, And this membership provided dance classes and workout classes for me, all scheduled out in advance to where all I had to do was just show up virtually. His family had a big basement downstairs that just had the perfect room for me to do my dance and my workout classes. And also, if we were in California, I'd be doing the exact same thing. During one of my classes, Brandon interrupted me and he said, "Hey, you should come upstairs and interact with my family instead of being down here by yourself." And I'm like, So, a little background, his mother does not like me. His mother really has never liked me. And this was after many, many times of me trying to make an attempt to have a positive relationship with this woman. So instead of me going upstairs, I respectfully declined, and I used that energy onto myself and onto pursuing my career, hoping that I would be able to manifest and become a professional dancer, instead of me being surrounded by people who don't like me and putting on a show for them and making myself uncomfortable while everyone else is fine. Brandon knew all of the interactions that took place with his mother, like prior, and the fact that he asked me to just come upstairs and just put on a front for everyone just showed that he didn't care about me being comfortable. He didn't care about my feelings. He was just completely invalidating me as I sat there, and I told him, like, no, I don't want to go up there because of X, Y, and Z. So instead of him respecting it, he decided to say, okay, well, now you're making the basement smell really gross because you're sweating, and you're just making the situation with my family worse because you're not even putting forth any effort. When in reality, I was putting forth all the effort, but I was getting nothing, literally nothing in return with these people. So he went back upstairs and he did his job by making me feel bad, for sure. But I just thought that was just so disrespectful and inconsiderate of him to do what he did. Number 3, it is Thanksgiving 2019. At this point, I've only met his mom, his brother, and his father. And Thanksgiving is a big thing in their family, or in his family. So I was meeting about 30 plus people that night that his mother was hosting. He literally had his aunts, his uncles, and cousins there. And one of his cousins happened to have the same name as me, Danielle, but she goes by Danny. So to avoid any confusion, his mother, his mother made an announcement in front of all these people that I don't know and said, let's just call Danny, the other Danny, and let's call this Danny, Black Danny. Black Danny. Not only was I so freaking humiliated, I was so hurt, and I was fuming on the inside, because not only was this woman embarrassing me in front of a bunch of strangers, and I couldn't, show how I felt because this was my first time interacting with all these people, but the worst part of it all was that Brandon was there and he didn't do anything about it. It was so embarrassing and humiliating to the point where one of his mother's sister, his aunt, came up to me a little bit later on in the evening and she said, I'm so sorry you experienced what you experienced here. I'm not going to call you that. Which was nice, but again, Brandon didn't do anything. He just let it happen. And number 4, same thing, or it's the same night. Everyone is drinking except for me, of course. And his mother recognizes that I'm not drinking anything, and she offers me a glass of wine. I respectfully decline. She jokingly said, what, are you Mormon or something? And I said, actually, I am Mormon. And she looked at me as if I was a freaking cartoon character. All of this is taking place with Brandon being literally right next to me. She continues to not only make fun of my religion, but pressures me into drinking alcohol. At this point, this is the 4th time that she has asked me to have a glass of wine. And finally, Brandon steps in and he says, no, Mom, she's good. Let her be. After the fourth time, as like somewhat relieved as I was that he like finally like stepped in and said something, the fact that it had to come down to the fourth time for her to just zip and just leave me alone was an issue. And that literally, I kid you not, that started everything from the very, very beginning to, I would say, to the present time of this woman just not liking me and not giving a rat's ass about me whatsoever, because Brandon did not set any boundaries with her, you know, at the very, very early stages of a relationship. He just let this woman do whatever the heck she wanted to me. And he didn't care about how I felt, no matter how many times I freaking addressed it. I felt so, just so invalidated and just so hurt. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. And the fact that this literally happened years ago and it still hurts, like that just goes to show like how much of an effect it had on me, and it still has on me. But hopefully with a lot of therapy, I will heal from it sooner rather than later. Stay tuned for part 4. Let's talk about the most requested topic I got since my husband proposed to me in front of billions of people on an NBA court, the 24 hours before the proposal. So a tiny bit of a backstory. I told Brandon that I wanted to be engaged by my birthday, which is December 14th. Obviously, we got engaged December 20th. I was a little bummed when my birthday came and went, and I still didn't have a ring on my finger, but I had a lot on my plate due to the fact that being an NBA dancer, and especially during the holiday season, there are a lot more NBA games that are happening more frequently throughout the weeks. So December 19th, 2021, to be honest with you, I don't really remember much of that day. It's a Sunday. I know for sure I didn't go to church because I was anxious about the next day, which happened to be game day. But it was a pretty relaxed day from what I can remember. So let's transition into December 20th. The day of December 20th, I was working another job aside from being a professional dancer, and I was working at a place called Telos. So I had very, very early shifts, and my shift started at 7 a.m. So I get to work and I'm pretty anxious due to the fact that the game is later on that night. And I am front and center for the first time in any of the routines. Most of the time, front and center, that position is meant for the team captain. So the fact that I was a rookie on the team and I was front and center, it was a big deal, at least a big deal for me. My stomach was just crawling. I could not eat anything other than carbs. My anxiety was just up and over the roof. I practiced the routine a dozen times while I was on shift, and once my shift ended, I went home so I can get everything ready with my duffel bag, my uniforms, for me to head over to the arena. Brandon was home. He told me that he wanted to take me to the arena himself. Most of the time he's taking me to the arena, but sometimes we're not going, just depending on the time that the games start. Sometimes they start at 7, sometimes they start at 8. So it would just really depend on what time the game was starting. We were basically getting ready together. I was doing a little bit of light makeup and putting on my practice uniform because we always practice on the court before the game starts. And he was getting ready as well. The weird clue that I noticed was he was very fixated on what he was wearing and his hair. And this man, he's a blue collar man. So it was like, it just wasn't, it wasn't like him at all to be so fixated on what he's wearing. He asked me what jacket he thought was best for him to wear. And it was between a green puffy jacket or the black leather jacket that I got him for his birthday a few years back. I asked him in return, I was like, why does it matter? And he's like, can you just choose for me, please? Like, I don't know which one to go for. And I'm like, okay, well, go for the black leather one because the puffy jacket adds weight on you. And he's like, okay, cool. So he puts that on, but then I noticed that he's a lot more attentive with his hair. And this man, he has beautiful, luscious locks, but he does not know how to take care of it. He hates doing his hair. But like that night, though, I noticed that he was just very again, very attentive with his hair. And I'm like, all right, that's odd. Clue number 2 I noticed was while we were doing our practice on the courts, the entertainment director came up to us saying, hey, I need a volunteer for someone to come and try on these clothes for me that we may sell at the Utah Jazz store. So he chose me, and my coach was like, okay, like, are you okay? Like, you know the routine, you're good? And I was like, yes, ma'am, I'm solid. So I go up on a different level to try on some clothes. But little did I know, it wasn't for me to freaking try on clothes at all. It was so my team can actually practice the actual routine that they were going to perform that night. But of course, without me. The other clue was I subtly got to pick out the uniform that night. Very, very subtly. Obviously, we have to match our uniforms with what the players are wearing that night, the colors. So it was that the coach and the team captain were having basically an open conversation out and about with a few other teammates and myself being in that, just witnessing that conversation on what we were going to wear that night. I didn't realize that I subtly chose the green uniform that we wore. I found that uniform to be so flattering on every single girl on my team. So yeah, so I'm glad that I got to have like a little bit of a say, whether it was meant to turn out that way or not, but that was another clue that I noticed, but completely overlooked. The next clue, our coach, she lined us up to check our hair and our makeup to make sure everything was good. She's only done that once, so I found it like somewhat a little weird that she did it, but I mean, she was our coach, so it wasn't like abnormal, but just because it doesn't happen consistently, it just happened randomly that night, which wasn't random at all. But yes, so she lined us up to just make sure that our hair and makeup were good. And then the other next clue was that my teammates were literally disappearing randomly. I would be sitting on the floor in the bathroom doing my hair, and I would look and there's no one near me. I think there was about like 27 of us on the team that season, and there was only 3 people in the locker room with me at that time that I noticed that people were gone. Little did I know, though, they were practicing their routine away in the cave, or near the cave of the mascot. It's just so funny. It's so funny the fact that like they just disappeared and I didn't think anything of it as if it was normal, because it most certainly was not. And then the last clue that I completely overlooked was the fact that our coach, she told us beforehand that there was a lot more cameras that night that was going to be on and near the court. So just don't pay any mind to them. Just do what you got to do. I didn't think anything of it because, again, I was just nervous. I just wanted to make sure that I got the routine down and I wasn't going to let her down and let anyone else down, and just trying to be confident in my ability. But little did I know, there was a lot more cameras because it was literally being live broadcasted, which is insane to think about. And then the rest, you guys freaking saw. You literally saw. I was completely shocked of how it happened and how my teammates and my coach and Brandon were able to pull it off and also keep it for me for as long as they did. Brandon, he asked me beforehand if I wanted to get proposed to publicly or privately, and I told him it didn't matter. I just wanted him to follow the 5 rules that were important to me. So make sure my nails are done, make sure my outfit is on point, which my team did, say my full name, get down on one knee, and then also ask my mother for her blessing. And he did all 5 of those. So that is what happened leading up into the 24 hours of the proposal. Just wait until I tell you the 24 hours after the proposal. A lot of you guys think that he was trying to steal my shine. Brandon had his own spotlight and I had mine. There was no shine that was being stolen whatsoever, because there's a lot more doors that opened up for me after the proposal went viral. And I will post that very soon.
I'm still stuck on the Black Danny.
I cannot believe his mother publicly embarrassed her like that in front of all her family that Danielle didn't even know. And then the fact that her boyfriend at the time didn't even address it and just let the mother do this is even wilder. Like, that should have been the biggest red flag. Him guilt tripping her to go upstairs. Like, I cannot stand when people guilt trip somebody. If they don't want to do it, you shouldn't force somebody to be uncomfortable. Especially if you already know your mother is super disrespectful to her. She listed reasons on why she didn't want to do it, and you still put her in that situation. But for him not to stand up for her, especially if you're dating somebody, and if it's your own mother at that, then like, you just don't need to be with that person. If you can't stand up for somebody, don't invite someone around someone like that.
I don't understand why men have such a hard time like standing up to their mothers. Like, it's not even that you have to be disrespectful. It's just more of a conversation to the side. Like, hey, like, respect this woman. I feel like if a mother disrespects a wife or even a girlfriend in front of the boyfriend or the husband, and the husband don't do nothing, I feel like that's just a sign of him not really caring about the relationship enough. Yeah. Because if a man really cared, it's like having a kid. You wouldn't let somebody talk about your kid crazy. You wouldn't let somebody like call your kid or black something, you know what I'm saying? If that's racist in a sense towards them, you know, so why would you let them do that towards your wife, your fiance at the time? I feel like you should value that woman just as much as you will value the kid. But if he don't value you, what's to say he gonna stand up for the child or anything else?
That just shows that the mother is not accepting of her son dating someone outside of their race.
Which is crazy to me. It's like, it's 2025. And it's like, if you know you have parents like this, then you need to be extra about these type situations. The fact that you know your mom is, I don't know, it sounds like a racist to me. Mm-hmm. You know, if you know your mom doesn't like black people of my skin complexion, then you shouldn't bring people around that's going to bring that out of her, in a sense. If you care about your mom more than you care about your relationship, then why date the people she don't like? Right. Just go date people your mom likes, so that way you don't have to have these differences with your mother. We don't accept it, but we understand that this is a thing in the world and that some people just don't like us because of how our skin turned out to be.
Let's now talk about the 24 hours after my husband proposed to me on an NBA court in front of billions of people. Y'all miss me? Because I miss y'all. Okay, let's start by saying I am no longer pregnant. I had my baby boy. He is absolutely a breath of fresh air, and we are back at home, settled in. Things are all good now. I just wanted to thank you guys for being patient, and also thank you those who weren't patient. It just shows how eager you are to know about the story, but obviously, you know, I gotta put myself and I gotta put my family first. So let's get into it. Yeah, let's get into it. So picture us still at the arena. The game is over, and I am getting my duffel bag already. Brandon is waiting for me outside of the locker room. We have photographers who were on the court, literally filming and obviously taking photos of our moment, coming up to us and congratulating us and airdropping me the photos, which was really, really nice for them to do. We have the entertainment director coming up to us, giving us advice to not read the comments. We did read the comments on Reddit, I'll admit, but I did not read any of the other comments really on any other social media platforms. And yeah, everywhere we went throughout the arena, because we had a long ways to get out of the arena since it's huge, people were just congratulating us. A lot of strangers just saying congratulations, so happy for you guys, yada, yada, yada. And I think one of my favorite moments, obviously, like underneath getting engaged that night, was that we were crossing the intersection to get to the parking garage where we parked, and people rolled down their windows and literally yelled, "Congratulations, you guys are so cute," and they're clapping as we're walking the intersection. And I thought that was so cool. Honestly, it felt like a moment for me, like, I don't know, it just felt like a Tyra Banks moment. It was just, I just loved it. It was such a cool moment for us. And yeah, it was just such a happy night. Even though it was a big moment that took place in my life, I also did work that night, so I was pooped. We did go and get tacos at like a place that was near our house. So yeah, we went to go and get tacos, but then once we got home, we literally got ready for bed and we went to sleep. And every single time I go to sleep, I always put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Thank goodness I did that, because I literally woke up to hundreds and hundreds of messages. Okay, I'm talking CNN emailed me, Fox News emailed me, KSL News emailed me, The Amazing Race series emailed me. On top of that, obviously, we had people tagging us on social media, congratulating us. We had our friends and our families from back at home blowing us up, congratulating us. I woke up to Snoop Dogg reposting me. I guess reposting our moment, sorry. I woke up to Bruno Mars reposting our moment, and just my social media just blowing up. And at that point, I only had Instagram and Facebook. I did not have a TikTok. I got a TikTok a little bit later on, but I definitely had tons and tons of messages of people saying, you need to download TikTok. So we obviously contacted Fox News back, and they were so sweet to offer us a ride in a very, very nice car to a studio for us to have a interview with them. So we did that. KSL News, we had an interview with them along with my coach, and they also had me mic'd up for one of the practices, so they can get just the behind the scenes of me practicing with my team. And I guess just like the things that I'm saying, like while I'm on the court or while I'm speaking to my teammates, which was really a cool moment. It really was. And CNN did not contact us back once we reached out to them back. I think it's just because we said yes to Fox News and maybe their competition, correct me if I'm wrong. And then The Amazing Race, they contacted us offering that we should apply to be on their season. Obviously we didn't get it, but it was still such a cool freaking experience and just a cool moment for us to say, hey, The Amazing Race literally exclusively contacted us, wanting us on their show. Like, come on now, that's pretty damn cool. And on top of that, along the, I guess like the famous side of it, I had photographers all around Utah contacting us to give us a photo shoot for free so they can be just considered for us to have our engagement or our wedding done by them, which was really cool. And I absolutely love the photographer that we both agreed on. Shout out to you, Jessica. I love you. I love you. I love you. So yeah, she's just absolutely amazing. And I'm so glad that she found us and she contacted us. We had Utah Jazz journalists contact us for us to do phone interviews, so they can get their articles up about how we met, our love story. I even had people who were journalists back in my hometown in Plano, Texas, who are like now big journalists in Texas, contact me to do like a virtual interview. Who else? I gave a virtual talk at Utah State University at a club, basically just talking about how being a Black woman in this industry is and how my upbringing was for me to be in this profession. If I had just some challenges as a Black woman, and of course I did, I had my own. I thought that was a pretty powerful thing for me to do, so I definitely did not want to pass up that opportunity. I did a radio interview. I did a small content creator podcast, goodness gracious, podcast interview as well. And also we did have the opportunity to be written by a writer from the New York Times magazine. They were thinking of even flying a photographer out to our wedding to get exclusive shots of us to be put in their magazine. So literally had all of this happen within 24 to 48 hours of us getting engaged. It was so mind-blowing and so chaotic, and Brandon definitely reacted like, I remember what he said. He was like, I thought that we would be maybe, like Utah famous, not like nationwide famous or worldwide famous. He was just like completely speechless. Like, he obviously got notifications from his friends and from, family back at home and whatnot. But no, it just went bananas, and it opened up so many doors for me. Like, even though this moment didn't last as long as I wanted it to, of, you know, us being like the happy, loving couple, married with kids and just continuing life together, etc., etc. I'm so grateful for the opportunities and just the blessings that it brought my way. For example, I wouldn't have this platform if it wasn't for what took place. I wouldn't have you guys supporting me, being there for me, and even those who aren't supporting me, but you're engaging, so you're helping me no matter what. I'm grateful for y'all as well. I don't have anything bad to say at all about what happened and what took place after we got engaged. The only thing that I can say though is I did not know that betrayal took place already in my relationship, right underneath my nose, and it felt like free agency was taken away pretty quickly, but yet I was living in pure bliss. Part 6. Stay tuned. It's my wedding day. Let's talk about it with the man that proposed to me in front of billions of people on an NBA court. Okay, so let's start with leading up to the wedding day. So we chose a venue called Watley Farms in Utah. We got married in a beautiful castle, or we had a reception in a beautiful castle, and we had our ring ceremony on the side of the castle in a beautiful, stunning garden area. The theme of our wedding was like an enchanted forest. It was kind of inspired by Bella and Edward's wedding day. I just love vineyards. I love vines. Hi, baby. I love greenery. So that was what I was aiming for, and I'm sure, well, no, I'm not sure. I know I did a pretty damn good job nailing that. So I know people are gonna ask, so I'm just gonna answer. Was Brandon involved in the wedding planning? I planned the wedding by myself, but yes, of course he was involved. What I mean by when I planned the wedding by myself, I mean is that we did not have like a wedding planner at all. I did all the planning. I'm so type A. I wanted it to just be how I wanted it to be for my wedding. And obviously, if Brandon is okay with everything that I wanted, great. If not, we would change it up. So he was involved in obviously picking out our cake with me. We went cake testing together. He wasn't involved like with the florist or anything like that, just because, I mean, he's a man, like he didn't care about the flowers, but he was involved with like the groomsmen's outfits, obviously what he wore on our wedding day. He was more just into like the budgeting and the financial stuff, and I was more into the DIY, the craftiness, the decorations, things like that. A lot of things that we had at our wedding day. We had a floral wall for our pictures. I built that. We had just like signs for our wedding day. I created those. Literally YouTube and Pinterest were my best friends. Yeah, and I just wanted to be crafty because I wanted us to save as much money as possible. Okay, so I've gotten this question a couple of times. How many dresses did I have on my wedding day? I had one dress on my wedding day, but I did buy 2 wedding dresses. So we had first look pictures. I wanted this dress to not be the dress that I was gonna wear on my wedding day. It was flowy, off the shoulder, a very big slit. Brandon loves my legs, or I guess he did love my legs. I don't know now, whatever. But I got that dress kind of tailored to what he liked. And then obviously the dress that I wore on our wedding day is what I liked, which was like a very form-fitting dress, a very low back cut moment, a little bit of cleavage, long sleeve, absolutely stunning. I loved both of my dresses. Oh, and you can check out my Instagram for you to be able to see them. I'm sure I have some also here on my TikTok page, but yeah, you'll definitely see them for sure on my Instagram. So leading up to the wedding day, was I stressed? Yes, I was stressed because not only was I the bride, but I was the wedding planner. So I was just stressed about the decorations and about just things that were basically out of my control at this point. Was I stressed at all about marrying Brandon? Hell no. At this point, Brandon was my dream guy. He was, damn it, he was absolutely my dream guy. I was so confident going into this wedding, marrying him. I did not have any cold feet, any second thoughts whatsoever. But there was a moment where I kind of felt like my body was telling me something that I completely overlooked. A couple days before the wedding, I think it was like 2 days, I had a panic attack in the bathroom of our Airbnb. Brandon was there. He was trying his best to calm me down. Panic attack or maybe anxiety attack, I'm not sure. But I was hyperventilating and I just couldn't speak. And he did not have the tools to calm me down. He was trying, but he was failing. So I mumbled for him to go and get my maid of honor, Katie, and my bridesmaid, Lily, that were upstairs. We all got an Airbnb for the bridal party. We were staying downstairs. Everyone else is staying upstairs. So he went and got them. And they came downstairs and they figured out a way to calm me down. I think it didn't register in my mind. My fiance can't even freaking calm me down, but my girlfriends can. Looking back on it, honestly, I felt like that was maybe a sign that my body was telling me, but I just didn't think anything of it. I was just stressed about the wedding, not about the person that I was getting married to. Moving on to the wedding day. So we had, like I said, our ring ceremony on the side of the castle in this stunning garden area. I walked down the aisle by myself. My father is not in the picture. He hasn't been since I was 2 years old. And my mother is very, very traditional. She felt uncomfortable walking me down the aisle. So I just found it as a moment for me to, just put my big girl panties on and to just walk down the aisle solo. And yeah, it was a pretty badass moment. I loved it. During our ring ceremony, the only thing that really stuck out to me that I just was not okay with was Brandon's vows. I felt like Brandon's vows was tailored towards everyone else that was sitting and witnessing us get married versus it being tailored towards me. And yeah, I was pretty disappointed in his vows, I'm not gonna lie. I know that he was nervous. He is not the type to stand up in front of people and, speak, whereas that is just my alley. I freaking love doing it. But yeah, I wasn't happy with it. I told him that later on that night when we went to our hotel room. He wound up actually reading his vows word for word on the piece of paper that he took out, and I actually wound up loving them. So I don't understand why he just didn't do that, but I felt like that would have been a moment for him to for sure tell all of his family, all of his friends, like how he feels about me, since he's not the expressive type. And who knows, maybe that could have calmed the waters later on, but obviously that didn't happen. So yeah. After the ring ceremony, we had all of our guests go inside for happy hour. It was really, really hot, or for cocktail hour, cocktail party, whatever, just drinks and like a few finger food, I think, while we took our pictures in the vineyard and just all around the castle. And then we obviously started going into the reception where we would eat. So I danced with my mom. We started our dance with WAP by Cardi B, and then we led into our mother-daughter dance song. And Brandon had obviously his dance with his mother. It was kind of awkward because each dance that we did was a minute long, including our own dance, like me and Brandon. It was just a minute long. And once the music cut off, she continued sobbing on his shoulder and continued dancing with him. And it was kind of awkward for all of our guests. Yeah. But after that shenanigans, we wind up being into the party scene. So we were dancing, the drinks were flowing. Obviously I wasn't drinking, and there was a lot of people from my home ward that came in. We had literally about 95% of our wedding guests be from out of state. So yeah, but yeah, it wasn't a dry wedding. Brandon drinks, or he did drink. And everyone in his family obviously does, and his friends. So yeah, the drinks were for sure flowing and everyone was having a good time. Later on the evening, Brandon didn't know about this. I planned a surprise wedding dance for him. So I went upstairs with my maid of honor to get all dressed up. I had just a white long sleeve leotard and then pieces from my wedding dress that I wore on my wedding day, just as decorations for it. So it's very, very special piece for me. I still have it. I wound up performing it in front of him. He was in a chair right in front, and all of our guests were surrounding us in a U shape, all behind me while I performed for him. It was a pretty hot moment, I'm not gonna lie. It was to Buttons by the Pussycat Dolls. So I've had a lot of people freaking ask me about this, but if you want me to freaking post the full dance, since I posted a clip of it a couple of years ago, let me know in the freaking comments. I'm scared to do it, but if you guys literally bug me about it, I'll post it for you. That is all.
I just want to say congratulations to her for, a safe delivery. And I think it's so cute when performers dance for their spouse at their wedding. Like, that's so cute and original. And just being creative in that way, just something you love, being able to express it on your day. That's amazing and beautiful.
I don't see why some mothers look at marriage as they lost their son. Like, you got your son. Like, you should want your son to move on and be equally yoked and with somebody who can take care of him, take care of his family. You should want that for your son. If you got a woman in his life that cares about him enough, why would you want to get in the middle of that?
I think it's more so when, males have that relationship with their mother. The mom wants to be the first person they always call whenever something's going on or whether they need a opinion about something. And now it's going to be like, now I'm just going to ask my wife. Like, your opinion's just going to come second.
Let's talk about when I find out I'm pregnant shortly after we get married to the man that proposed to me in front of billions of people on an NBA court and his reaction to my pregnancy. So where we left off is Brandon and I got married September 6, 2022. And after we come back from our honeymoon, we are staying in an Airbnb for we don't have a place to live at this point. And Brandon is working. He just got accepted into his apprenticeship program, #blue collar life. And I am seeking another job. I have decided at this point to step away from dancing professionally just for a year, just so I can focus on being a wife to Brandon. So basically how my day looks is I'm looking at jobs and I'm going to the gym every single day because it's my freaking medicine. And leading into October, I noticed that the new Gymshark set that I got for me to go to the gym and look cute in, it didn't fit me. So that was worrisome a little bit. I just started to feel really weak. I started to feel bloated. My body just something fell off. But also during this time, I also feel like I was having a little bit of an identity crisis or just trying to figure out what my purpose was in life. So I was praying to God daily on what he wanted from me, what he wanted me to do since I decided to take a year off of dancing professionally. And just what popped into my head was, God, if you want me to be a mom right now, I trust you. If you want me to start that era in my life, I trust that if this is the time, then so be it. And little did I know, I was already a couple weeks pregnant as I was saying those prayers. So getting a pregnancy test, I was 5 days late, and I have never been late at all. So I obviously decided to get a pregnancy test pretty later on in the evening. And Brandon's at work at this point, so I decided to take a test, and I wanted to record myself just in case it was positive and just keep that memory for myself. Once I saw those 2 red lines pop up on that pink little thing, I was overwhelmed with joy, with gratitude. I felt so blessed, the fact that Heavenly Father chose me to bring life into this world. And I just remember just being so blessed and so happy, yet so scared at the same time that I was carrying life inside me. And I was just so excited to be able to share this news with Brandon. I didn't want to do like a Pinterest perfect moment, that you see of wives or just partners trying to tell their other partner that they're pregnant. I can't keep a secret, especially from Brandon. So I waited until he got home for me to tell him immediately after he got home from work. once he got home from work, I already had my camera or my phone set up in an area where, you know, I can just record his reaction. He laid on the couch and I handed him the test that I got from my sweatpants, and I see him look at it and he just has this like panic smile, like this, and then he hands it back to me. And I have my hand over my mouth. I'm so excited. I can't believe that this is happening. I mean, it's not like we prevented it or anything, because we didn't. That we were just going to bring life into this world. And I know this man backwards and forwards and all around. I know this man better than his own dang family. They can argue that, but it's true. And honestly, I would say that he would think it's true too. I analyzed him from top to bottom, and I immediately freaking knew, based off of his reaction, which was a fake reaction. It was a mask reaction. It's a perfect way to say it. He did not want this. This was too soon. He was panicking on the inside. Literally, I could see his wheels turning. Looking back at the video, and that video is hard to watch. It was always hard to watch, just because I knew from the very, very beginning, based off of just how he reacted. I, even in the video, was expecting him to give more. I was basically fishing for more. You guys have seen, I'm sure, many reactions of husbands like picking up, you know, their wife and twirling them around, or like even crying or embracing them like with a big hug, and they just have this big smile on their face and they're like, yeah, we're doing this and let's do this together. I didn't get any of that. At all. I got a panic, freaking weird, hesitant laugh and a weird, creepy ass smile. And I had to fish for him to give me some kind of reaction. I literally told him in the video, I'm like, well, are you gonna hug me or anything? And then that's when he actually hugs me. And while I am on the side of his face, I just feel his energy. I feel his panic mode energy. And he can argue this all he wants. I don't give a flying F. Had an intermission. He's okay. But again, I can just tell that he did not want this whatsoever. And I think where I left off was I was on the side of his face as we were hugging, obviously. I just felt his energy, and looking on the video, you see the mask just slip a little bit. You see his freaking wheels turning in his head of him just being like, it's too soon, this is too much, I didn't want this, whatever he's thinking in that moment. It's just all revealed. And like I said, I have the video, and of course I have my reaction of when I find out I'm pregnant, and I may just post both, and you guys can tell me what you think in the comments of both. So yeah, I remember that night when we went to bed, I just remember thinking, you know what? I'm just gonna let him tell me when he's ready. Let him tell me when he's ready the fact that he does not want any of this to happen, at least not right now. And that day never came during my entire pregnancy. It came 4 months postpartum, which I will go into in part 8, as that is part of my postpartum journey. But weeks later on, as we are searching for a fifth wheel, he is impulsively buying a freaking big ass truck to obviously have the fifth wheel be pulled by, for us to do this whole thing with his apprenticeship program of traveling from state to state or from city to city and living in a fifth wheel. I noticed that he was just being a lot more distant towards me. I would talk about the pregnancy. I would talk about just really anything that I'm feeling, my nausea, like all of it, because obviously I was in the first trimester, and anything I did, he did not care about. He was just so focused on his apprenticeship, Like, in a way, as he should, because he's starting it. It's brand new to him. This is something that he's wanted for a long time. Totally get it. But we were starting a life together, and we were bringing life in while we were starting life together. I don't know if there's anything more important than that, or if there's anything more beautiful than that. And I really wanted to share that moment with him, but he just kept on pushing me away. I don't know why, but I feel the need to say this. It's not ever okay to feel like you aren't wanted by the person that you should be wanted by. And I'm not talking about partner to top partner. I'm talking about child to parent. I don't know if you'll ever see this, baby boy, but I just want to say I love you so, so much. I was so ecstatic and overwhelmed with the most positive thoughts of bringing you into this world. And I love you so, so dearly. And I have my own built-in bestie. None of this is your fault and never ever will be. You are loved. You are more than enough. And you are for sure wanted. And I'm so happy you are here. And that God chose me to be your mommy. I love you. Let's talk about my 9-month journey being pregnant with the man that proposed to me in front of billions of people on an NBA court. I'm not gonna lie, my pregnancy absolutely sucked, and it sucked just because I did not have a supportive partner. So I'm gonna give you guys 5 stories that took place during my pregnancy that left for sure a mark. Number 1, we are living in this camper in Vernal, Utah. The winter in Vernal is the worst winter that the natives have seen in a very, very long time. And it got so bad to where we didn't have any running water, so we couldn't pee. I couldn't pee inside the camper at all. I had to literally take my business out in the snow, and that extra business in the office, I couldn't shower. We would shower on the weekends when we would get a hotel. So bad hygiene, no running water whatsoever, morning sickness on top of that. It was absolutely a complete nightmare. With this camper, the stove didn't work. 1 burner only worked out of 3. We have a 50-pound Siberian Husky that did not have any room to roam around. And anytime you would shift your weight or you would walk in the camper, it would move. So combine that with bad hygiene, no running water, it's freaking cold outside. I have morning sickness. It literally just creates nothing but a disaster and me being completely miserable. Brandon, on the other hand, I guess he was fine with it because, I mean, his hygiene is what, a 2 out of 10. This man is totally fine. As a blue collar man, may I add, not being able to brush his teeth, not being able to shower daily, choosing that too. So me, on the other hand, nope, that is not okay with me whatsoever, especially since I have doctor's appointments frequently and I like to smell good since they are going to be all up in me or near me. And yeah, it was truly, we were truly in the freaking trenches. Awful. And before anyone asks, no, he didn't do anything about it. Number 2, so we are already fully aware that Brandon is a king at dismissing my feelings. One thing that he's also very good at doing is he does not believe anything that I say unless I have proof. So when I told him about my cravings, and with this pregnancy, I was craving things that were hot and sour. So I had a stash every single time just to make sure that, it was easy access. When I would tell him about those things, he would say, oh my gosh, you're just using that as an excuse. You're using the pregnancy as an excuse to just get the freaking food that you want. Okay. So one night, when he comes back from work, he stops and brings McDonald's for dinner. I order a quarter pounder, take 2 bites out of it, and not even within minutes, it's all over the floor from my mouth. Brandon is literally sitting there watching me vomit like a deer in headlights, like just startled, just like not freaked out, but just completely speechless at the fact that I just vomited because he's never seen me vomit before. And I'm mumbling as I'm vomiting saying, I told you, because he also didn't believe that I had morning sickness. And by the way, morning sickness doesn't mean that you just vomit in the morning. It means that you're just nauseous all the dang time. And that's how it was for my first trimester. Number 3, we got into an argument, I think it was about an hour before one of my doctor's appointments. And as I'm going into the lobby, I check in at the desk, we sit down. I am trying everything that I can to hold back tears, but I just couldn't. So I'm crying and I walk out into the hallway and I try to gather myself, and Brandon follows me. He's trying to calm me down. He's trying to rub my back, which I do not like. He's not talking to me, which I wish he would have, because that's my love language. I calm myself down. I go back into the lobby, and the receptionist asked me to meet her at the front desk. She hands me the depression survey. It is literally a survey of 10 questions asking basically just on a scale of 1 to 10 how depressed I am, and to see if I need antidepressants for this pregnancy. I was completely flabbergasted. I was shocked at the fact that I was considered, like, I was on their radar for this, because I am naturally a happy person. I'm not depressed. I don't tend to be depressed, like, ever. So the fact that I was on their radar for this really, really sucked, when it had nothing to do with the pregnancy and had everything to do with the fact that I just did not have a supportive partner. And let's add into it, Brandon had also told me that my doctor's appointments were a waste of time, that he wished that he would just, go to work and make money versus actually being with me at these doctor's appointments, because nothing big would happen, like an ultrasound or anything like that. Some of them would just be questions. And even though, he had a little bit of a point that some of them were a little tedious, it didn't matter what we were doing at the doctor's office. It mattered the fact that I needed the emotional support, and he just couldn't put 2 and 2 together. Unbelievable. Number 4, it is holiday season. Thanksgiving and Christmas has taken place. We have not told our family yet. We said that we were going to tell them when we would see them for the holidays. So we go to Washington for Thanksgiving. His parents are divorced. We go to his dad's place, and we are sitting at his dining area, and how we were presenting it to our family was this cute little white onesie that said "new to the crew" and a cute gift bag. So he opens it, he takes out the onesie, and what this man said, horrifying. He takes out the onesie, holds it up, and he's like, "Are you guys pregnant?" I'm like, "Yeah," hoping that this would be like a good moment, because he's very, very close with his dad, and I like his dad. Instead, he says, "Well, I wish you guys would have waited longer, but I guess congratulations." That is word for word. That was literally in my freaking notes, because I remember typing that right after we stood up and left and went to the couch from the dining room table. I was livid, because I'm like, who the hell do you think you are to tell us, "Oh, I wish you could have waited longer"? It wasn't part of our plan either, but the thing is, this baby is coming whether you like it or not. So are you going to be on board, or are you just going to be not supportive? And what did Brandon do, everyone? 1, 2, 3, nothing. He didn't say anything whatsoever he didn't say anything at all. So not only do we have 1 that doesn't want this, we have 2 that doesn't want this. Funny how the apple doesn't fall far from the tree at all. We tell my family, on the other hand, at Christmas, and they're freaking excited. They're happy. We tell my friends that are basically part of the family, we call them gunkles, gay uncles. They were super duper ecstatic. My mom knew kind of beforehand, because she tends to have these dreams where her dreams tell her that someone is pregnant in the family, and she had that dream. But also I had COVID while I was pregnant with Declan, so I was scared, and I told her, and she was like, "Oh, I already knew." I'm like, okay. But the thing is, though, my family was happy, and it was just unbelievable that he had the nerve to say that, as if he's involved in our marriage. Boy, bye. And lastly, the one that freaking hurt the most. During my second trimester, we were now out of the camper because I couldn't handle it. We were staying in this ghetto house extended stay, but it was much, much better. So really don't have too much to complain about with it. And I don't know, I think it's our day off. We're both laying in bed and Thor's laying on top of us too. Brandon is scrolling on Instagram and he is looking at this thirst trap of this beautiful black woman who has half naked pictures back to back to back. He's looking at her. He's really, really in detail with it. I look his way at his phone and he completely exits out of it. And I'm like, no, go back to what you're looking at. So he goes back to it and he's like, oh, she's an author that I found on Twitter and she has a book that's coming out. And I'm like, oh, really? What's the book called? And he completely is like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, so you want to tell me the real reason why you're staring at half-assed naked pictures of this woman? Well, because she's pretty. Okay, all right. This wasn't an insecure thing. This was a boundary thing and just a respect for me as his wife, going through this really, really big change of my body, because I also have body dysmorphia and he knows that. And him looking at someone who I don't look like at all, and I look like a walrus. I feel like I look like a walrus, and he hasn't made me feel pretty or complimented me this entire pregnancy. It really, really hurt. And we got into an argument about it. I was so upset with him. He realized how upset I was and he did apologize. But this right here, literally, this showed a sign. And the sign that it showed is cheating. This is literally the first sign of the fact that this man is cheating on me. Stay tuned for next one.
I see where the parents are coming from as far as like thinking it's too early in a relationship, but them to like verbally just voice how they feel, that was completely out of line. I get like they're in transitioning stage right now, starting new jobs, don't really have a place to stay. So maybe it could be like, you know, I don't think you're ready for that. But that, like I said, that's not their place to say that.
Right. Yeah. I think that the family just don't like her, and they wanted to see whether or not they was trying to give it some time to see if they would just naturally divorce. The way the dad came off, I can tell he just was hoping that they would just divorce and get over with. Because why else would you say that? You know what I'm saying? At the point where we married, you should assume that they are in love and that this is like going to be a forever thing. So if they are inviting kids into that, no matter how soon they did it, you will respect it because you like, all right, you know, you're going to be family forever. I feel like people need to just read people better before they jump into these marriages. All of this was really rushed. And I hate to put that out there, but you could tell it's rushed because you didn't even know this man really. You didn't really know him enough. And I feel like if you would have knew this about him before you jumped into this marriage with him, then you probably would have never even came close to it. You know, so I'm always wondering, like, what was the motive behind marrying somebody? Because before y'all even got married, you was having issues with him. You was having issues with his family, you know, so I'm like, I don't know. I'm just trying to understand.
When you're dating someone, whether, you know, they're married now, but when there's a baby in the picture, everything changes. The person might be super attentive or just all about you. But when a baby becomes a part of the picture, it's not only about you and that other person anymore. So him not even want to be there during the doctor's appointment, that just showed right there that he's not going to be there for those moments like that.
Right. I can understand a man's perspective when it comes to doctor's appointment because I've been to a lot of them. And it's times you went without me, you know, and you never made me feel as though like I'm a bad person for missing those appointments because you knew that it wasn't nothing but a routine checkup at this point. But whenever it's like ultrasound, you get to hear the heartbeat, stuff like that. I feel like you should hold them accountable to see those things, and a man should want to hear those things. But I ain't gonna lie to you. I kind of understand the hospital thing. Like, if you don't need me there, why would I'd rather go make money for the family? You know what I'm saying? Like, this time, if you need me there, okay, you need me there, but can you do it without me? You know, and it seems like I'm just being fair. Like, I hear her story. I do feel bad for her and I understand where she's coming from. But in fairness, like, if one of the reasons that you're upset with me is because I'd rather work sometimes than attend every doctor's appointment with you.
I honestly, I think it's different with every person. Like, if that's important to her, whether it can be looked at as little to him, if it's important to your partner, then you should be there. Whether it's as little as, oh, it's just questions. But she wanted that supportive person there. Like, this is who she leans on.
Even if work is on the line, you feel like he should still be there?
I mean, if he has work, then okay. But he was like, I would rather be doing that. It's not like he said, I had work. He was just like, I would rather be doing something else than being here and supporting you through this. But if it's important to your partner, no matter how little it might seem to you, if it's important to your partner, the person that you're marrying, the person that you're vowed to, be there for that person, no matter how little.
It makes sense. That's a good point.
Let's talk about my postpartum journey after having Declan with the man that proposed to me in front of billions of people on an NBA court. The vibe is different. As you guys can see, I'm doing it during the day instead of at night with my glass of wine. But I'm just gonna be honest, it's really, really freaking hard to talk about your first postpartum journey as you're going through your second postpartum journey with all the emotions and the hormones just flying around. So hoping that doing it during the day makes this video a little bit better for me to bite and swallow and digest. So to start off, my birth experience wasn't what I was hoping it would be. I developed preeclampsia in the last month and a half of my pregnancy, and that resulted in me having to be induced. And then also my blood pressure was skyrocketing as I was getting closer and closer to dilating to 10 centimeters, but my blood pressure was completely off the charts to where I had to have an emergency C-section. They had pumped me of so many different kind of medicines that I was physically and mentally not even capable to speak to nurses and doctors. So Brandon, he was really nice and kind enough to step in to fill out those documents, to speak to the nurses and the doctors, to just really be the spokesperson for me. So I'm really, really glad that he stepped up, at least in that position. In the hospital, it was just my mom and Brandon. Again, we were in Vernal, Utah, a place where none of us had family or friends. And we finally got a place in Springville, Utah, which was about 3 hours away. So being induced was somewhat nice just because we had a 3-hour drive and then we could just drive 3 hours back instead of, having a adventurous or a sporadic birth. The recovery process was unbelievable, okay? My mom and Brandon, they did not help me at all, really, with the physical recovery. The nurses stepped in and really helped getting me in and out of bed, helping me even put on my freaking underwear, shower, all the basic hygiene stuff. It was so hard, and oh my gosh, I was not prepared at all for how hard it was going to be to recover from a C-section and have a newborn baby and take care of myself and that newborn baby. Finally, after about 3 days after giving birth, we're finally discharged. And the thing that I had to endure once I got discharged was quite unbelievable. And I didn't realize it was unbelievable until I got more information on the matter. So to our surprise, Brandon tells me that his father is in town and that they are driving to the hospital right now to come and see us. This was not part of the plan whatsoever. We didn't know that they were coming. It was a surprise to both of us. We were excited to be able to see Doug because, like I said, I like his dad, but then again, it was still surprising. Literally, as we exit the doors of the hospital, his dad is pulling up into the front of the hospital and we see him. And I'm shocked that they made the drive, happy that they did. But we literally have a 3-hour drive ahead of us from Vernal to Springville. So we eventually meet them at the place that we finally have of our own. I literally still look pregnant. Like, I haven't been out of the hospital for 24 hours and we already have visitors at our house. I'm not really okay with it. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm still recovering from a C-section and all I want to do is just lay on bed and cuddle with my newborn baby. So I don't know how it is for other moms, but at this point, or at least for this mom, I know that I just want my baby to be next to me. We literally shared a body together for 9 months, and just being away from him, I can't put it into words other than the fact that it just did not feel right. But I thought that Brandon's father was visiting us out of the kindness of his heart, but little did I know it was literally out of pettiness, and let me tell you why. So my mom and Brandon's mom had a conversation over the phone and they got on the topic of postpartum and when the baby is here. And my mom told her, because I said this, that I didn't want any visitors until 6 weeks postpartum. But apparently Brandon's mother heard 6 months postpartum, apparently. So she goes telling this information that my mother claims to tell her to Brandon's dad. And the Taurus man that he is, I'm sure he was pretty freaking upset to hear about that. So he takes matters into his own hands and he's like, well, basically, no one's gonna tell me if I can and can't see my first grandson. So yeah, he freaking shows up, completely surprise. No one knows that he's showing up for him to see his grandson. And yeah, it's not out of the kindness of his heart. It doesn't matter me. Like, I don't matter at all. It's just him and his feelings and his selfishness. So hearing this information, I'm livid because my mom, she could be a people pleaser and she may be, weird about her ancient times TV shows and movies that she absolutely loves. But if there is one thing that she is not a freaking liar. And I protect mine. I protect mine on my own. So I was livid at this point, and my mom was pretty upset about it too. So Brandon and I, we talk about this and we finally get it all somewhat sorted out. In the end, he was there. He was there for less than 48 hours and it is what it is. But like, again, this was the reason why I did not want to have any visitors. I just didn't want to have any visitors. And the fact that he just completely did not respect that boundary was just not okay with me. Moving on, the first 12 weeks of Declan's life, which is the newborn phase, I am doing it all on my own. I'm doing the night feeds on my own. I'm doing the bedtime, bath time, all the feedings literally on my own. My mother has left and Brandon went back to work, even though the 1 week off that he took was not helpful at all. And yeah, I have completely developed the status of married single mom. Fast forward, I'm 4 months postpartum, which means Declan is 4 months old, and Brandon and I have a system down. He's going through the 4-month sleep regression, but Brandon, what we're doing is we're taking turns soothing him anytime he wakes up during those little short periods of time. Declan is finally down at this point, and we are just in the living room watching a TV show before we go to bed. And I don't know how we got on the subject, but he finally tells me how he felt, that he did not want this. The feeling that he had that everyone saw in the reaction video that you guys also all saw. Finally freaking tells me that he didn't want this, but he also tells me that he regrets having those feelings. I'm not gonna lie, when he tells me this, I don't hear, I regret having those feelings. It just completely confirms all of my feelings that I felt when I was 9 months pregnant with Declan and the first few months of postpartum. I just, during this conversation, I'm just like feeling everything, all the resentment that I built up over that year, the emotional neglect, the abandonment, just being by myself, just being alone, dismissing my feelings and validating how I feel, dismissing my cravings. All of it is just coming to a head, and I let him have it that night. I let him have it. So after this conversation took place between us, our marriage just hasn't been the same. I still have so much resentment towards him with it. We are seeking counseling. We go for a couple months. It didn't work. We have a lot of life events taking place. We are finally moving out of Utah because he has his apprenticeship now moving to Colorado, which is where we are now. But we moved to Colorado April, and we finally get a home in August. So we were bouncing from Airbnb to Airbnb those few months in between. But while we are in the house and he is in Alamosa, which is 2 hours away, that is when I find out all the cheating that has taken place. He doesn't tell me. I find out because God told me and told me exactly what to do and where to go. I confront him on it. He's very, very apologetic, but yet he continues to do it. And I find out also that he has been cheating on me since 2021. And we got married in 2022. And I had no idea what was going on behind my back, the betrayal, all the cheating. Especially since I told him I was a deal breaker in 2019, that I am not a fan of PORN. Let's talk about the darkest chapter in my life because of the man that proposed to me in front of billions of people on an NBA court. This one really is a hard one, so if you know, you know. Oh my gosh. All right, so we left off on me finding out about his cheating and his betrayal that took place in our marriage because of him, had nothing to do with me. And we are going to skip past when I find out that I'm pregnant with Calvin because his reaction wasn't really that much of a difference. And we are going to fast forward to when I am 30 weeks pregnant. I couldn't talk about this before because of an active case, but now that it has been dismissed and sealed, I finally can. So let's get into it. So let's go back to mid-May of this year. At this point, I'm about 30 weeks pregnant, and it has been revealed to me that there has been more cheating going on after I find out before I got pregnant. So 30 weeks of me finding out more cheating and more betrayal has taken place in our marriage on his end, and I have just completely snapped. So what do? Well, your girl breaks his PlayStation. I broke his PlayStation, I snapped. That was absolutely my freaking breaking point. And yeah, I just couldn't take it anymore. So a couple of days later, after I broke his PlayStation, things are still tense between Brandon and myself. And that night, Declan had become sick, or I guess that evening, Declan had become sick. So I put him to bed early. Brandon was on his way back from work, and like I said, things were still pretty tense between us. We were just nonstop arguing and fighting back and forth. So he was very, very aggressive over the phone. I knew he was going to be aggressive in person, just knowing him. So I locked up the entire house just so he wouldn't get in until he had calmed down. Like I said, he was being aggressive and I was scared. And not only was I just scared because, you know, I was 30 weeks pregnant and vulnerable, but I was also scared that he was going to bring all this chaos in the home and possibly disturb our toddler and wake him up. After beating on the glass door, the glass sliding door, which is behind you and in front of me at this point, and trying to break it, may I add, and also threatening that he would break me, I told him multiple times to calm down and I would let him in, but he wouldn't calm down. So instead, he threatened to call the cops on me, and in that case, he did call the cops on me. So when the cops arrived, obviously they spoke to us separately, and me locking him out of the house clearly was not a reason at all for them to make an arrest. But for some reason, somehow, a conversation between Brandon and an officer, the topic of me breaking his PlayStation was brought up, and that gave the officers motive to arrest me, even though that wasn't the reason why they came to the house to begin with. But according to the officer that I later on questioned in the back of a cop car, Brandon tried to backtrack his story so that I wouldn't get arrested. But I mean, what the fuck did he expect? You don't just call the cops on a Black pregnant woman in America where the system does not work for me and just assume that they will just give a warning. The system wasn't made for me. I'm in two vulnerable groups in America, arguably in the world. So for him to think that they were just going to give a warning is very, very idiotic. And once he made that call to the cops, he not only put myself in danger, but he put my unborn baby at that time in danger. Once I was put in the back of that cop car, honestly, that was probably one of the most scariest moments of my entire life. And it was just so freaking scary. And I asked the officer that was driving me around a million questions, and he was kind enough to answer all of them. He had an answer for all of them, literally. But before we were going to go to jail, I had to go to a hospital first for them to check on me because I was pregnant. Once we arrived at the county jail, the intake process was absolutely freaking humiliating. I had to put all of my belongings, which was just like necklace, earrings, of course my wallet, my phone, in a plastic bag. And I'm not gonna lie, at that moment when I put it in the plastic bag, I didn't know if I was ever gonna see those items again. And then I had to at this point I had to strip, squat, cough, and spread myself open in front of an officer in order for me to prove that I wasn't hiding anything. And once that humiliation was out of the way, I was handed an orange jumpsuit. So at this point, it is 10 o'clock at night. I am sitting in an open lobby in a plastic chair. It is cold, it is freezing, and I literally sit there from 10 o'clock at night to 7 a.m. in the morning. 9 hours. No food, no water. And if you don't know this, but when you are in your third trimester, you should be eating every 2 or 3 hours. Otherwise, your stomach starts to cramp. And not only was I sitting in this plastic chair, waiting for them to just put me in a cell, I was in massive, serious pain. And no matter how many times I asked for help, no one would help me. They told me they didn't want me to sit in the temporary cells that they had in that open lobby because fights break out often in those cells. So for the safety of me and my baby, they told me that I just needed to sit in that plastic chair in the lobby. Again, 9 hours straight. Terrified, pregnant, in so much pain. At this point, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. They are finally escorting me to my cell, and with it, they gave me a brown sack lunch, and inside there was very, very hard, thick roll, a bag of carrots, a few cookies, a few vanilla cookies, what else? And the finale of them all, schmeat is what the inmates called it. It smelled like a mixture of tuna mixed with a mixture of chicken and mayo. And I tried everything I could to eat it, but I just could not at all. And another thing that I forgot that they had in the sack lunch was a 2% cart of milk. The women around me, though, they were very, very friendly. They gave me their vanilla cookies, they gave me their rolls, and they just said, you're eating for two, so you need as many calories as possible. And in that moment, it was really nice to know that people in there, not only did they not belong in there from all the stories that they told me, is that they were just showing an act of kindness in a very, very harsh environment. The woman that I was bunked up with in my cell, she was also a mom, and her and I bonded really well. Not only did we bond over us being moms, but she told me that she had a 3-month-old and that she was scared of losing her supply, and her reason for being in there was because of her baby daddy. Unfortunately, that wasn't the first time that her baby daddy put her in there, so she knew the process of how things went, and she told me about them, and I'm not even kidding, she kept me sane. Unfortunately for me, but fortunate for her, she got bailed out about 6-7 hours before I did. So I was in my cell for at least 5 hours by myself, and oh gosh, those 5 hours were fucking long. They were so damn long. At this point, I have had, I'm not even kidding, at least 5 panic attacks. I think I had a total of maybe 12 or 13 in the 24 hours. And just during that time that I was in the cell by myself, I was just begging and pleading with God, just trying to get me through this process, trying to get me out. I was just on my hands and my knees, just begging and pleading to please. I got cut off, but I wanted to continue this because this is so, so important. I just was at a loss, and I really, really just needed God to show up there for me. And I was just begging and pleading and crying and sobbing so, so much. It was My thoughts, I could not control. My tears, I could not control. And even though I knew that I had Galvin inside me, and that how I was feeling on the outside was so bad, and it was making him feel all those things, I just couldn't do anything else other than let it out. I told the officer, this was hours before, I told her that I really needed the jail doctor to come and see me to check my blood pressure, just due to the fact that I had preeclampsia with Declan. I was scared that I was activating the preeclampsia now with everything that was going on, and the doctor arrived, of course, hours later. They checked on me. My blood pressure was pretty high. It was dangerously high, and later on that day, I had another panic attack, and it was so bad to the point where I just could not control myself. I was hyperventilating, sobbing, crying, tears, just being so loud, to where an officer, and this is like against the rules, they're not supposed to do this, but an officer, he grabbed my hand, because fun fact, when you're pregnant, you're handcuffed in front, not in the back. So he grabbed my hand, and as he was taking me to the jail doctor for them to give me a high blood pressure pill and water to calm myself down, he just showed so much kindness, that officer. And this officer was known for being ruthless and mean, because I literally saw it happen before my eyes. And even though it was, like I said, against the rules for him to hold my hand as an officer and me as the inmate to show some kind of, I don't know, I guess comfort or kindness, I was really grateful that he did that for me, and that saved me in that moment for me to finally calm down. So once those 4 or 5 hours finally went by, which were, again, very long hours, the officer came and got us women, and we came to a room where the men and the women were together in this big room, waiting for our turn to be called up to the judge that was on this big projector screen right in front of us, for us to see if we would get a PR bond or we would get bailed out, but we'd have to pay. While I'm entering the room, or before I enter the room, there is this man that is getting strapped down by many officers because he attempted to, and I saw it happen all in front of me, and I felt so bad for this guy. I don't know how long he was in there at all, but he screamed and screamed, and I'm not even kidding, it went from 2 officers to 6 or 7 officers on top of him. And as they finally got him to stand up and relocate him elsewhere, he screamed, "Well, thanks God." And it just made me feel so bad, because not only was he trying to, but the fact that he was in there for as long as he was, for him to lose his faith, my heart just went out to him so much in that moment. It really did. And I was petrified that something like that was going to happen to me. Even though, yes, I did break the PlayStation, I had no idea the seriousness of it. I didn't know that it would, ever get me arrested. So, yeah, like I said, all the emotions, all the thoughts were going in my head that I was going to be in here for a long time, or be in there for a long time, but I had to hold on to my faith, and I had to just know that I needed to get out as quick as possible, because I had to take care of my baby. So once the court hearing started to happen, it was finally my turn. And like I said, the judge was on a big projector, and it was basically WebEx, and Brandon decided to show up on WebEx as well. The judge asked him what he wanted the result to be, and once it was his time to speak, he had a crack in his voice. He was crying, and he said, "We just want her to come home. We miss her so much. We just want her to come home back to us." The fuck? Not only was I thinking as I was standing there in an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed, crying like a sobbing baby, I was thinking, well, you're the reason why I am here. And now you're saying that that you miss us, that you miss me, that you guys miss me. When in reality, honestly, it was just the fact that he had to miss work in order for him to take care of our toddler. But what gutted me the most was knowing that Declan was sick, that he came down with something just hours before I got arrested. And Brandon later on told me that that night, the night that I got arrested, Declan came into my bedroom looking for me. Looking for my comfort. Looking for his mother when he didn't feel good. To give him love and comfort. And I wasn't there for it. That gutted me so much. That hurt so much. And I knew that something like that would have taken place, but I could not make myself think about what was going on with Declan while I was in there, because arguably, I probably wouldn't be here, or Galvin wouldn't be here, because my blood pressure was already so dangerously high. But when he told me that, that just broke me. And I just had to trust God that he was going to watch over him and he was going to protect him, even though Declan was in the wrong hands, even though the person that was responsible for Declan temporarily was the wrong person to be responsible for him, period. So after my court hearing ended and I got a PR bond, so I was going to be released, they escorted me back to my cell, where I had another panic attack or two. And about half an hour later, my cell opened and they said that I was going to be released. Walking out of my cell, I didn't feel relieved. I felt broken, I felt humiliated, I felt betrayed, but I also felt grateful that in that moment that my baby and I, we survived the most traumatic experience I've ever had in my entire life. But as I walk out of my cell, and there's about 80 plus cells full of 2 women per cell. I'm not even kidding, about half of them were clapping for me. Half of them were clapping for me, saying, I'm so glad you're safe. I'm so glad you're okay. I'm so glad you're getting out of here. Good job, good job. To hell with your baby daddy, to hell with your husband for doing this to you. You got this, mama, you got this. Just so much freaking support. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what the heck was happening before my eyes. Some of the women were asking for food. Some of the women were asking for the little supplies bag that they give us, which is like a comb, a brush, shower gel, whatever. And I just gave it away to anyone who wanted it, to basically just express how grateful I was for them honestly keeping me safe while I was there. And I say that because I know that there's not a lot of Black women who make it out alive in situations like that. So that is a moment that I will never ever forget. Another moment that I will never ever forget, that once I was released and I was on the outside, after seeing Brandon for the first time, the words that he says to me, seeing me for the first time again, is, well, I hope you learned your fucking lesson.
Usually in this situation, when you're married with somebody and there's damage to property, they usually say we can't arrest anybody because you guys are married. Right. So it's a civil case. So for it to go as far as her being arrested, mind you, the night that the police were called was not the night that she broke the PlayStation. I feel like the officer was just trying, he saw the relationship the man was probably in distress and they were just trying to side with him at that point.
You can't pretend like that didn't have nothing to do with that girl's skin color. Because come on, getting locked up, put in prison for breaking a PlayStation of your married, like y'all married.
I've heard broken, like other things being broken.
I've heard of physical abuse.
And they can't do nothing about it because you guys are married. So for it to even have went this far and then she's pregnant.
Our prisons are too crowded. She must live in a state where the prisons are just available and open. Because no way, man. We got too much real crimes going on in our city to be sitting here locking up people for breaking PlayStations. That's how you know it's some hate in that. He was looking for any reason to arrest her. I thought they were just trying to scare her or something. How is it too late if nobody got hurt? Like the officer could have been like, all right, well, he don't want to go no further with this. Let me just, y'all just figure this out. Because that's what it's going to be. I don't know how she ended up in this situation, but I would sue. Somebody needs to be sued for this because how do you get locked up? Are we tripping, Messy Family? Like, is this something that you can get locked up for? He wanted to teach her a lesson, and I guess it went further than he expected. He didn't realize that, oh, my mom and dad ain't gonna help me watch these kids while I'm at work, so I'm gonna have to stay here and do it myself. And once he realized that, of course, he's emotionally crying on the phone because since the jump, she said he's only cared about his money, pretty much. Like, and this is obviously affecting his money. People were questioning her for having another child by him, even though that he did what he did the first time. And I'm not here to cast judgment on that. We don't know her situation. When you are being love bombed by a narcissist, that means you are being put in a situation where you don't feel like you have a way out of it. So I respect her regardless of her making a decision to stick around the only man she ever had a kid with and try to continue to have a family with him even though he has cheated. It is when I done heard story times of people dealing with worse situations and still sticking around with people and getting married. Hell, we just came off a saga. An 8-hour plus saga about something like this, and it's still going.
Cheating for a lot of people are a deal breaker, but I think once it gets to the point that you're calling police and people are going to jail, that's the deal breaker. So drop a comment down below. What's your deal breaker?
But Messy Family, at the end of the day, that's all we got on this story time. We waited a week to see if she would make another story time just to reflect on what she's already said. It seemed like it ended abruptly, but she hasn't came out and said anything. So at the end of the day, if you guys are still interested in more, because maybe she do have some more and she's just healing. There's a lot of trauma in this, so I can understand why it's taking her a little time to get this out. So if you guys do want to follow her for more updates on that situation, whether they come or not in the future, you can find her direct link to her profile in our description box below, all right? So go ahead and follow her for more updates. But other than that, Messy Family, that's all we have today. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section, and we will see you guys in the next story time. Peace.